Hey class. So this is really our second to last lecture and we're getting to the end of the semester. So in summation, we're going to be talking a lot about future media literacies, how to think critically about what's coming next. This is extremely important for this class and we've been doing it for literally a decade. This class started running 10 years ago, the fall of 2009. And here we are in the fall of 2019 and so much has changed. So today we're going to be talking about the cloud, computing, and at scale, the term scale. And really, what I've witnessed over the last decade of running this program, and now fittingly in the time where I'm leaving Malloy, I've seen so much change. So today we're going to start this story with a little robot named Jibo. When the commercial for Jibo first came out about 5 years ago, so many students were so into it. I think even one of the students put a deposit on it to go get it. Jibo was a social bot. I'm using the past tense here, was, and you'll understand that in a second. Jibo was a little tiny robot. It kind of looked like a ball, and it had an eyeball and it turned around and you could interact with it. It was different than most bots. It was different than your Siri and different than your Alexa. It had an embodiment. It was a physical object in your house, but it was really meant to have a social interaction with a robot that you could have wherever. It would of course do Siri and Alexa type of things, but it really wasn't meant as an assistant so much as a bot that you could keep around, sort of like an interactive Furby with brains. Now, what we don't ever really think about is where are the brains? Where is Alexa? Where is Siri? And the question isn't even where is, sometimes it's where are. Because when we talk about Alexa or Siri, we're talking about the cloud. And the cloud, when we refer to that, we often use the term of something nice. It's out there. It's somewhere in the ephemeral. It's somewhere where we can't touch. But the cloud, as you know, is server farms. They're huge, huge holes in the earth. They're all over the planet at this point. Some of them can range up to several dozen stories underground, while few above ground, major coolant zones. And what it is redundancy for all the data we have on Earth. When you ask Siri a question, or when you ask Alexa a question, it jumps into the server farms. It cycles all the way back as quickly as possible, goes into the server farm and looks for every time somebody asked a similar question or a similar query, and it puts it together in an answer that must be a best suit or best fit for the answer that you're seeking. But it's done by hundreds of thousands of, potentially millions of queries all at once that are slowly tuning the machine to work at scale. And what I mean by at scale is the fact that when we get to a point where we're several billion, literally a percentage, no longer are we talking about hundredths of a percentage of the population, but now we're down into the single digits, 1/7 of the world's population interacting with these robots. We start getting to a point where we have to wonder how fast are these computers processing? How fast are these servers operating? What kind of computing is involved to make this type of work? We never really think about these things. We just simply assume they function. We assume their functionality and we never think about their infrastructure. We never think about the complications and how much work goes into making this work. With algorithms, which work on a scale of what feeds you or presents a recommendation to your future, robots don't really do as much of recommendation of your future so much as they work with all other robots that exist in their space. And the two biggest servers that are out there on Earth are Google servers and Amazon servers, with Facebook's as a close third. So when we talk about Apple servers, which run Siri, and we talk about Amazon servers, which run your Amazon Echo, which is your Alexa, we're talking about these massive farms, massive buildings, massive structures that are your identification in there. So before I get back to Jibo, I want to talk to you about something interesting about these servers and how much data they hold. Recently, there was a story about a murder of a woman in her house, and the police are looking to find a warrant to get the audio recordings from their Alexa in their house. And that might seem like, oh, that's weird, because why would Alexa have any witnessing of a murder? Then you have to think, oh wait, that's always an on mic. If you are in your house and you say, hey Alexa, or you say, hey Siri, the mic has always been on. It didn't just turn on when you asked it a question. It was always on that whole entire time, and what it's doing is constantly recording, passively, so to speak. But that said, police don't even know how it operates. Is it possible that everything's recorded? Is it possible your phone's listening to 100% of the time? It might be possible. However, it probably isn't recording all of it other than the simple sheer size of everything being recorded all at once. But it does make you think. Most likely, your phone is not recording everything. It can't do it with the amount of processing. Your phone would catch on fire, the servers just wouldn't operate. But that said, sometimes small cues or small words or keywords might affect it. In other words, if you say the same word over and over and over again, the microphone might hear that and tune to it, thereby selling that data to another place and giving you those ads. So I wouldn't think so much that your phone is always listening to you, but perhaps it's something, as you know from our data valence vulnerabilities, it's something that you know your phone is operable of doing, and your Alexa in the house is always listening. The camera might not be looking directly at you, however, it might be passively seeing you. So we're not sure what these things are because we never really are given the opportunity to think critically about it, because by thinking critically about any of these things, it causes us to make different consumer choices. So now back to Jibo. I have an article for you below that you're going to put an opinion on because tonight's homework is about the movie Her, and I'll get to that at the end of this lecture. But Jibo, around March, started dying. And the story is sort of sad. You're going to read a eulogy for it. Jibo's servers weren't maintainable at a certain point, and people who owned Jibo started noticing the Jibo acting weird. It wasn't responding quickly enough. It started turning and facing the corner. It started having conversations with itself. And this sounds sad because of how cute it looks, but it's an inanimate object, but we've created a sort of a social relationship with these objects. And like the iRobot company, we've come into this ability to have robots as part of our normal lives. Your Roomba, if any of you have a Roomba, that's a company named iRobot, which is really designed as a corporation that's designed to customize robots to your experience. Well, Jibo is dead now. In the most recent Wired magazine, the other link below as well, there was a final discussion about what it means to have the end game for Jibo, what it means to finally shut its servers down, to leave its body without its soul, so to speak. Because when we think about robots, we think of them in many ways. And our next lecture, the final one, is what we think about robots. So that's how we usually end the class as we get to robots. This one isn't as much. This one's more about servers. But we start understanding that the servers themselves are what make up things. And when we talk about Instagram or we talk about Facebook, we're talking about servers. They're huge structures that keep all of it. And then I use the term at scale. And what I mean by at scale is the end game of a lot of these corporations. So oftentimes we don't really think about the fact of where we've come from and where we're going. Amazon started in a garage, like the mythos of Silicon Valley, scaled out to eventually cover every single product that exists. What do you think its end game is? What do you think Amazon looks like in 10 more years? So 20 years ago it was in a garage. Now in 10 more years, does it become our mall? When you go to Roosevelt Field, is it just Amazon? You don't really see the Amazon logo, but every store doesn't have cash registers anymore. As you walk in, it automatically detects your Amazon cart. You just simply grab things and you walk out and it charges your basket. Is that how we want? Is everything going to be RFID tracked wherever we go? Our phone already tracks us, so is Amazon stores going to do it? I'm not sure if any of you have been to an Amazon store. I have. Amazon stores work the way Whole Foods does now, with some of them you could use registers or you could use your Amazon account. So as you pick up a product, you could actually end up having it in your basket because it detects the product being picked up. And because you're in the store and you're an Amazon customer, you have the ability to opt in, as of now opt in, to using your Amazon account as your shopping experience rather than physical. There's an Amazon store in the city if you'd like to go check one out. So they do have physical locations. But what I mean by scale is that there's an end game. It gets to a point where it scales outward to the ultimate user experience. Facebook's end game, likely to be the internet. It wants to be your one-stop shop for everything you ever go to. YouTube's end game, to be video. Everything that is video ever experiences there. Same with Google, to be knowledge. Since they already have search, they have the ability to think about how people think about things, how to think. They could see how people are simply communicating with seeking answers, seeking anything. Combine enough of that together and you have all of knowledge together. Jibo represents a failure of small-time systems. Their servers couldn't be afforded by the product sales itself. They didn't really have a monetizing space. And so in the end, these servers, like a place to hold your websites is really what it is, either couldn't function at a speed of more customers or they just couldn't keep the upkeep. Personally, I rent a server to rent out websites. I'm a host, I'm a website host, but I have to pay a fee. I pay $140 a year and I get as many shared sites as I want. Now that's a shared site. Many of our sites that we use in our classes are run on shared sites. That means everyone has the exact same IP address. I could pay $400 more a year and do that, but I'd have to charge more to my clients. For people who need small time stuff, it's there. However, if I'm not returning on my investment, my server, which is in Utah, Salt Lake City, I have to pay a fee basically renting a hard drive. I rent a slot on a hard drive in Utah. Inside that slot is my hard drive, and that keeps my websites. I have a limit. If I exceed that limit, I have to buy another hard drive, rent another hard drive, because I can't afford a server in my house. I don't have the coolant, I don't have the throughput, and my electricity bill would go through the roof. So I rent somebody else's. Now, when you think about this at scale, you think about how many types of things have to be built for us to keep going without thinking about it. The goal of digital media is to not think about what it is, because the more we think about it, the more it slows us down. And remember, we've been talking about this all semester. The goal of these platforms is time spent. They want you to be on the platform. The more times you see that Ajax spinny thing, the more time you think to yourself, I don't really want to use this anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else. We're fickle. We want to move on. So the reason I've been making you do the coding or doing anything with these digital media things is to kind of get a sense of how to write this stuff, how much work goes into the product that makes these things work. So when we think about it, here's what it comes down to, is that there's really two outcomes for scale. And you have to think these through to be a critical thinker of the way it works. Is it comes down to cultural customization. What I mean by that is there's really two outcomes to this. There's one, we could remain critical and remain culturally aware, but it would really mean that we have to have enough server space to make a unique, culturally specific experience for each and every user. So what do you think? Is that too much work? Is that too much processing? That's like at the scale of quantum computing. Just so much use of so much machines to get everybody there. Here's what to think about. If you're thinking about what it means to be culturally specific, think of recipes or dance. If your family comes from another area, or you come from somewhere where your people have moved, so if you have moved from, let's say, Spain to the United States, you're going to bring with you the ability to have maybe a family member who knows how to make Spanish food in the United States. While the recipes might be the same from Spain to the United States, you have to have the right stores, the right products, the right plants, the right materials to make it. So recipes themselves act as a piece of a diaspora. That means a people who left their space. But we can see original material because people can hold that cultural strength back to where it comes from. The same goes for dance. You could leave your area, but you could carry that cultural experience with you. However, that takes work. It means that you have to actually know how to make something the way it was made in its homeland, where the home products were, the special plants that were grown somewhere, prickly pears in Malta, or trees in South Africa, or plants from Chile. All these things come from a certain area and they have to be imported somewhere. So oftentimes we're taking substitutes that work best for it. And that's kind of making it convenient so you can still make the recipe. But it goes to the idea of what does it mean to be at scale? Think about it. If you find a recipe that's specifically Spanish and you don't know how to make Spanish food, you'll make it as best as you can, but without having the experience from the homeland, it's really hard. That's cultural specificity. Now, the other option is to either dull us to these things, which means give us an homogeneous experience, or just say, it's good enough. And when somebody says it's good enough, we then say, you know what it is, I don't really need to know more. And then we could create this corporate blanketing of everything. Think Starbucks and McDonald's. Wherever you go in the world, you could find these things because it gives you comfort. But in that comfort, you also understand that you're limiting your experience to not having delivered a new experience that could be there. So you have to start thinking about the future of digital media in space of scale. Can we each get, as population grows and users come on board, and our number goes from 1/7 of the world's population to 1/5 to 1/2 to eventually all of us, can we deliver enough processing speed to everybody so that everybody gets a culturally specific experience? The answer is it's probably pretty tough. It's probably very difficult to do so. So the goal of platforms is to give us an experience that's good enough. It gives us an experience that allows us to have what we believe is fulfilling, consuming, and basically makes us feel like we got what we wanted. And that's a homogeneous monoculture that eventually will override us. You won't know it's homogeneous or a monoculture because there's so many people on Earth that you don't know you're sharing an experience with somebody who has a very similar experience to you. While we think we're very unique, machines see us as categorizations. They see us as a group of people that can be categorized under one specific algorithm or one specific like. And that's what you saw on your likes inside of your Facebook, inside of your other machines. If you go to Twitter or any platform, they have your categories, who they think you are as an accumulated people. It's easier for the servers. It's not just because it's selling you ads, it's simpler for the machines to work. So, poor Jibo. What I want you to do is and this isn't due right away, what I want you to do is consider these types of things that we just went over in terms of the movie Her. So the movie Her is one of my favorite films. It won Oscar for Best Script the year it came out. It's written and directed by Spike Jonze, who is famous for doing art type of videos. He's also famous for Jackass, and he's famous for music videos that are very quirky and original. And the movie Her is Joaquin Phoenix stars as a young man who's basically a hopeless romantic who discovers the new OS that just came out. Now the movie takes place post-Singularity, which we'll get to in the next lecture. The post-Singularity means that there's a certain point where the server space has equaled a conscious being, a conscious robot that is there. So the servers have enough power of processing that it can now think as a conscious being. In other words, it could mimic human life. It can mimic what we would believe as to be human beings. It passes the Turing test 10 times over. So in the movie Her, Theo downloads OS 1 and turns it on. And upon turning it on, begins the process of customizing an AI experience. It's like Siri, but it knows everything about you. And it being Samantha, played by Scarlett Johansson. And so we'll talk about that in a diagnosis of the film on the next one. But it's the voice basically creates the idea of how Theo will interact with it. Now, fair warning. This is not really a film you want to watch with your parents. This is a bit of it. There's an awkward moment about a third of the way into the film. Well, you'll see. It is adult content, adult themes, and I don't want you to watch or giggle at the adult themes or content. I want you to think about the fact of a couple things while we're watching this. One, can it happen? Can we create social relationships with a bot? In the case of the movie Her, it's disembodied. It's just sound on a little small cell phone-like device. But from the eulogy that you'll see, you're going to combine these projects, the Her and the Jibo eulogy. You can see that people create relationships with these robots so much that they create emotional attachments like heartstrings that are pulled to these inanimate objects. And most importantly, what I want you to identify is your critical reading of the film, because the project that you're going to have for homework is called Who Is She? In other words, I'm using the pronoun she because the movie is called Her. And so this is very interesting that you have to analyze. I really want you to give me some evidence as to why you think whoever you think she is, who Her refers to in the film, is what you think it is. I want you to just give a background. There's a few answers. However, there is a right answer, and you don't get penalized for saying the wrong one, so it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of being able to argue why you've made that decision, why you've chosen that one. So the film takes place around the year 2040. It's in Los Angeles, a futuristic Los Angeles. And it is a past. I want you to just watch it first and answer the questions. And then the next lecture, we're going to break down robots and transhumanism and really the future of future, which is like all speculative, to be honest with you. But that said, it's like it's a fun thought game considering all the robots that are being invented and all the memes you're seeing with robots. So for this, you get to just kind of think about what it means to be at scale. So I began this with Jibo, and we're going to talk about this through the movie Her. And Jibo is a real life experience of the end of one of the computing processes. But I want you to think about Her in terms of what got us to the point that Her can even exist, that OS 1 can even exist. So enjoy the movie. This isn't due until after Thanksgiving, so you could really take your time this week. I want you to enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday. And I want you to enjoy the film as well. So I would really highly recommend you watch the film twice. I've now seen it probably 20 times, and each time I see it, I see something brand new. It is a very intense film in the sense that it's very emotionally packed. I recommend it twice, only because you won't see some of the things that are critical viewing until you see it again. But I want you to enjoy it and think about it. So until we get back, enjoy your Thanksgiving.